Hi, it's Kate here. It's the 3rd of April 2020. I'm living in a gated block because I did used to live in more vulnerable housing, and so many bad things happen in these places to some people, and you think you're pretty safe, but in this gated block, we've lost a few bikes and we've had people break fences, and that's because we have housing on um, on one of our borders, two lots of public housing. And today I was coming home and I saw this guy that looked unfamiliar. Um, I'm not racist, but he was an Indigenous guy that I had seen before. And I told him, I seen he was carrying a bike in a funny way. And I said, "Oh, excuse me, put that down." So then, yeah, then he's put the bike down and jumped over the fence. Now, I, from quite a while of living in housing, I know how to deal with housing. And although it wasn't my bike, I had a bike stolen, and another female who has a young child relayed to me that there was some guy casing the place, and the only way that they can get in is to jump a fence, unless they break our fences, which has happened many times. You know, the remote ones. Anyway, the, these people don't realise that a lot of people that live in private rental places, they're struggling too. Like one guy gets bikes from the salvos and fixes them for other people and does goodwill in this way. There's plenty of single mums that choose or can't get into public housing, and I congratulate them for that. And at the moment, there's quite a few females in our block in that sort of situation. Um, I just wish that people, they're probably off their heads or not proper, but I was told, oh, they can't afford things and crime's going to get bad for this coronavirus thing. But I mean, all vulnerable people are on government payments and they all are getting extra money at this point. So, they shouldn't go stealing people that are struggling, who are probably paying, because, most owners don't live in the property, it's renters. Most people, their rents are 3 or 4 times out of public housing, and they choose to get away from, more undesirable elements, yet you have them breaking fences and climbing over and stealing our things. So anyway, I feel very strongly about this. I'd call. I don't want to be a dobber, but I care for my safety and that of other people. And this particular guy, apparently, we worked out it's the same guy. He'd been casing this joint at about 3 a.m. one morning, and one female single mum had caught him and said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Why don't you go suck my whatever?" So anyway, I called the police when I actually caught the guy, because funnily enough, he's a Cinderella. The girl who he stole the bike off said, "Oh, there's some shoes in my garage," and I said, "Oh, they're probably that guy's because he wasn't wearing shoes." And look, really, if the police really wanted to get him, they just really don't bother these days. Um, they know that he's been in this property before. They know things have been stolen before. They know, they've been called to the address where he is before. But yeah, I would tell you that when I rang Police Link, and I've only just got the internet on, today's the first day. I didn't have the internet on at the time, but I'm getting a bit scared that I can't go and use public Wi-Fi, and it's not that good anyway. And yeah, and also because I'm chasing this lotto thing, I just need to be able to talk to someone, which is the computer, and I document, how many days I've got left, which is now being the 3rd of April, I have 11 days shy of 10 months to prove this lotto. But anyway, with regards to calling Police Link, I could have gone online, but at the time I couldn't have because I didn't have the internet working. So I held on for an operator. I got the operator, and she did come around full circle in the end, but that's because I said I was going to report because we're fearing for our safety and we're told to keep away from, people and, like if there's communal pools, they're shut, like we have all these restrictions even where we're living, in fact. And we have people jumping fences and stealing our things and, being very rude and threatening. Anyway, so I rang, because I'd had my bike stolen as well. Another guy who's just left had his bike stolen that he just bought. Um, and like this is the third or fourth one that because I know actually another girl had a car damaged in her driveway and also a bike stolen. So there's been a few bikes stolen and some damage to property, as well as threats and, people hovering around in the middle of the night when it's meant to be gated. Okay, so I rang the police and said, look, I witnessed someone taking something, and it's purely mainly for our safety, but I know also that sometimes you do go against people, and that if they're high, they can check out where you live and retaliate. Because, look, this has happened to me before, but I just felt really angry that people can just jump a fence and come in plain daylight and steal stuff right under people's noses. And I did say to the guy, I had taken a photo. I said to the guy, "Excuse me," he had his back turned. He turned around. I said, "Put the bike down and you're trespassing." All he did was jump the fence. And I said, "I'm going to report it to the police." Now, I must admit, the police, I don't have a lot of respect for um, a lot of police in Cairns because they have even heavy handed me. And when I had a lot of trouble, um, which, which the police could have helped at, they in fact didn't act and made my problem worse. So I will say that I went through a horrible period a few years ago, and it even involved being attacked on the street by a psychotic paranoid schizophrenic. And I had three medical staff, two with stethoscopes, which meant they were doctors, and two other people, plus about 40 housos, witnessing that this girl had jumped me. But do you think I could ever get her charged? Also, her foster father worked in the Cairns police. That was another thing. But anyway, that's another story. And, I had to run around, and I actually went to mental health and saw her manila folder. I actually walked in the back door of the mental health at the hospital, and they said, "What are you doing here?" And I told them what happened, and they knew the girl. They thought she'd left town. I even went to the adult mental health place and said to one of the psychiatrists, "Can you just tell me that I'm okay?" Oh, look, actually, I'll even go further with this because I asked the police and mental health liaison team to come and help me. Bang, bang, bang. They come on the door. First of all, they did that because I had said I felt like I'd been being stalked, and what it was mental health watching this other lady. But in fact, it was like stalking me, so I was right at that. And then when things got really worse, I did ask this mental health team, which was an Inspector Greg Giles and another lady called Shelley, who struts around in her high heels. And when I'd asked them to help me, they'd spent a week at the time at the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, all nice and tan, this couple. and they knocked on my door, and I was all snotty nosed because I'd been getting my car smashed as well as death threats, and this is all because someone thought something in their head, the paranoid schizophrenic lady, and she just chose to use me as a pawn and attack me. Anyway, but no police were listening to me, so I thought this mental health team would help me. I couldn't even park my car in the front of my own house. People that I knew about a block away didn't want me to park my car there for fear that they would attack their cars as well. And I ended up finding a man who had a disabled son and across the road, and he let me park my car in that place. But my brakes had been done, so many things had happened. Anyway, after one time that Greg, Giles, and Shelley had come to my home, they asked me questions like I gave them access to my phone. I was just, I was like having a nervous breakdown, and believe me, this was all happening as a result of police not listening to me in the first place. And I could go into that further as well. So I'm really going off track here. Really, I'm just saying why I felt so strongly about having to pay so much rent, and shit still happens to you anyway. um okay, so I'm in my I went across to my car because I couldn't park it in my place because I'd moved into this new premises, and the girl that had been attacking me had smashed my car again. Now we know it's her, but it was more hearsay because someone told me it was her, and that's not good enough for the police, and they can't fingerprint bricks and rocks and things like that. Although she was hanging around that day, and when I'd come home to my unit, I saw a tall guy on my roof, and like he was obviously checking to see if I was inside. But the girl that was attacking me, her best friend had lived next door. And when I did go to see a psychologist, and I'll get into that, I was told not even to look sideways at either of those girls. That they're friendly with bikers that don't even know me. There was meant to be some hit on me, and also, even when I asked, because it was quite a big block that I'd been placed in, contrary to my doctor, with all the things that were going on, asked for me to be moved into a safer, smaller block. In the beginning, I didn't want to be moved, and I know I'm sounding skits now, but I'm not. I have a bit of depression, that's all, and I suppose that my depression is heightened by everything that happened to me. But um, and I'm not crying the victim here, but I'm just saying what goes on. Look, in short, I was living in a place. I'd asked the police and the mental health team, who were aware of this paranoid schizophrenic girl, and I don't feel sorry for her because she knows what she's doing. She might be under the Mental Health Act and all this, and she knows how to get away with things. Plus, her foster father's in the I don't know if he still is, but basically, she was very protected, and I wasn't, and resulting in that, I was threatened. I even had her threatening to smash my car again, and I took that to the police, but they said, "Oh, that's not good enough. We can't really tell that it's her." I went to New South Wales, and I found that when I showed them the death threats, and yes, the police say just to get rid of your phone or don't look at them, but I'd rather know who my enemy is than not. And I even had one, like a vulnerable guy on the street saying, "Oh, they were out for your life." And I said, "What did you say to him?" And he said, "Oh, nothing." And I said, I heard what you said." And he said, "Well, the guy that was going to do you." I mean, who are these people that are going to do me? I had not done anything wrong. Um, you know, just this girl had something in her mind, and she started attacking me, and then all these other people that were housos in the chain, that were people that had just come out of jail down south, because I caught one guy called Sparky apparently, and he had been stalking me, and I followed him one Sunday. My son was in the home. I just thought I've got to confront these people. So where I lived, there was a school across the road. So I seen him hovering around my car, which the first time they did it cost $900 to fix. Plus they damaged the guy I was going out with's car as well, which was a second-hand Peugeot. Anyway, I saw this guy, so I thought, well, I'm going to confront him. But he goes across the road, and he had this cane when he can walk properly. Anyway, I've got to be careful what I say anyway, because he had some thing that could possibly damage you at the end of his cane, some metal thing. Anyway, so he's gone across the road to the school, and so I'm there. So he figures, well, I better move up the other end corner. So I followed him up that corner. But by the time I get there, he's gone across the road to this fish shop and pretended to be looking at some piece of metal on the ground. And I said, look, this has got to stop. Look, I've got a child to look after, and I've got all this stuff directed at me, and it's directed at me from a person that is mentally ill. But the mental health team nor the police don't give a shit about me, because they really didn't. I was actually told to walk away from the police station. Anyway, when I first tried to report the stalking, and I'll go into that later too. I'm really talking a lot more than I should here, but um, so much went on. Basically, I said to this guy who told me he just came out of jail in New South Wales, and he was living in the housing department next door, and he knew this particular woman that was causing trouble to me. Also, she was a B&D mistress as well. She was running a business, and she ended up having a couple of children. I don't know what happened to them, but anyway, in fact, when she first moved into my block, I had learnt not to be, keep your move into a place, and especially in public housing, and just keep your blinkers on. But I didn't want to communicate with this girl, but then I got locked out of my house. She said, come over. I said, no. I saw her in a bar. She said, come and have a cup of tea. I thought she was really nice. I even said to one of the people that injected her once a fortnight, because apparently she'd had a child taken off her. I hadn't met the child at that point. Um, Look, I thought, I felt sorry for her that she didn't have a child, but little did I know how bad a person she was. And anyway, I told her carer like they should, give her child back to her. Anyway, when this sort of biker guy called Spark, with the nickname Sparky, with his long beard and cane with a bit of metal on the end, I finally confronted him at my letterbox. And after confronting him at the fish shop, I said, "Look, this has got to stop." He said to me, he sort of relayed this story, meaning to affect me. He said, "I've got a friend whose mother-in-law dobbed her into docks." Now, I never dobbed anyone into docks, and the girl that had attacked me apparently attacked me. She'd been knocking on my door for ages. I had been in town. I hopped off the bus, and she could see me, um, because our place, you you could see into the main road where I was. She saw me, and that's when she jumped me and attacked me. And there was all these other housos there. It was really like an episode from Housos. In fact, when I watched Housos after the incident, and I saw people getting knocked over in jest because it's a comedy, I was brought to tears. Anyway, that's just my story. But I'll tell you that initially my trouble started when I tried to report to the police one Thursday that I'd been stalked. I think actually no, on the Thursday this is what happened. Supposedly a female detective rang me and asked me about damage to someone's car. Now, I had a boyfriend who had his car smashed, and this particular girl said to him one day, "You'll keep." Now, one one point he said he had a feeling his car had been smashed, And he came back to me crying because the people that smashed his car smashed every window, pissed in it. Um, he got that car as a result of an inheritance. He'd been he was a musician on the bones of his ass, pretty much. Struggling to make a living, and these people saw the car outside my house, and I think it was the girl, but also she had a lot of protection from people because and aliases and things like that. And she was shitting herself, but I heard that she was telling people to say this and that to the police. And basically, even though I did see some people as well, um, we weren't really listened to. And when the police came, they just said the people went the other way when they went the way that we know. But anyway, um, so the first car was done by her, and I got a lot of threats on my phone. Now the Cairns police they didn't even bother helping. But when I went to New South Wales, they had tracked that it was on a shared phone. So perhaps she had been making calls from mental health when she was inside. I don't know because she lived in rented residencies and they weren't shared phones. She managed to be able to. She was smart enough to rent her own premises and do her own selling herself, etc. So I'm probably saying too much, really. But okay. So on the Thursday, I got a call from a detective saying had I what's going on and had I smashed someone's car. Now I had not smashed anyone's car, but I can't say because I don't know that my boyfriend at the time whose car had been smashed didn't get together with his mates and try and smash the people that were involved's car. I don't know that. Like that was all kept from me, and I don't really know. I don't know what happened really, but I was asked did I smash someone's car, and I was asked a few things. And when I told this detective, she wanted to talk to me at my home, but she's talking to me over the phone and asked me a few questions. I should have got her name. She said to me, oh, what's happening, and I told her how my boyfriend's car got smashed, and I didn't know anything about smashing someone's car. This is before they even smashed my car, and they did this. I know the person was involved because for some reason my car was smashed. Like I know when this girl's birthday was, and it was first smashed on her birthday. And I remember some other houses having a party, and one of my neighbours was friends with some person in ATSI in the art department, and I remember them playing with some green paint. Now, okay, so on the Thursday, the detective rang me. When she asked me some questions, she didn't even want to interview me at my home, and she probably was just someone from mental health inquiring what's going on because when the inmates are getting aroused, that they get wind of it. Um, and no offense to people, like I said, I suffer from depression and anxiety myself. Um, I talked to the so-called detective, and I said, "Look, I'm on my way home." She said, "Look, don't bother. Like, there's more to this fiasco, and don't worry, you're fine." But on the Friday, and I wasn't fully aware who had been stalking me, but I realised now that it had been mental health in their ute because I recognised their number plate. I went to the police station, and this is before I was beaten up or all my car was smashed. I went to the Cairns police to file a report, and they said, "Oh, nothing's happened." I said, "But look, I feel like I'd been followed." And I had even rang the police, but I hadn't been stabbed or anything like that. So there's not much I could do, but I insisted because I felt the pressure of these people. Like definitely I had been followed, but it was more that they were checking on someone else. But because I lived in this block, they were driving into our driveway and stuff like that, and my boyfriend's car had been smashed. Okay, so I didn't feel the tension so much when the boyfriend's car was smashed, and luckily he had an inheritance, so he got that car fixed anyway. But it's not fair that he had to go through that. But anyway, so on the Thursday, the detective supposedly rings me, and everything went like clockwork. On the Friday, I decided I'm going to go to the Cairns police and report that I'm being stalked because I was being really fearful. And at that stage, the boyfriend was keeping away because he didn't want his car smashed again. So it kind of isolated me. And my son was going through at that time, like first jobs and things like that. And anyway, so I'd gone to the Cairns police, and I still remember what the officer looks like, and I still remember his name. And there was an inquiry, but nothing happened, of course, because the police will protect their own. Um, all they did for me was write out all the things that had happened, involving police for me. That was their way of making me feel better that they were actually doing something. But like on the Friday, I'm in the Cairns police and I'm saying, look, I'm being stalked. Can you please take note of this? And I actually wrote in one of their own notepads, I said, look, I know if you don't write it down, you're not even documenting it. And then this officer comes from the back, had a bit of bad skin, but I do remember his name, but I'm not sure if I remembered it exactly, but like I said, nothing came of it. He goes, I'll just walk away. So the police didn't help me one bit. The next day, which was a Saturday, and that that Friday night is when I saw one of my neighbours having a party with all these other people from the block and not right next door, and they had the green spray paint cans. The next day, my son was doing an apprenticeship on the dive boats. I woke up, every window of my car was smashed. It's going to make me really upset. But they wrote some foul things on the front of the car, and that cost me $900, and I had to borrow it. Like I managed to get 300 myself, but I had to borrow like 600 from other sources, which I made sure I paid back because the following month it happened to me again, and it happened to me again, and I moved so many times, and every time the housing department would put me, the doctor would say, finally, can you move her to a place where it's a bit quieter? But they moved me to a much bigger block, and housing department know who their tenants are. If the psychologists know, not to look at these people sideways. Yes, housing do know these people, but they placed me. Someone had it in for me. They placed me right next door to the girl's best friend, and and finally I was moved out into the country because they smashed my car in every spot that I was. And meanwhile, even my son's boss said, don't let your mum come and drop you off because it's bad for the tourists. Because, of course, I broke down like I am now. Because, like I was only working part time. And, like I had my son in the spot. And in fact, we were paying market rent for this housing department property. And I was having all this shit happen. And I would say, that there's two sides to every story, but it really happened because a paranoid schizophrenic girl who was known to the police, who had been in jail a couple of times, caused me so much trouble, and the lies and the threats, and that she had a foster father in the police. I had no leg to stand on. So finally, I live in rental where I have to pay at least three times, if not more, as much as a housing place. It's meant to be gated, yet we still have houses jumping the fence and causing damage. Anyway, I probably talk too much here, but basically, what I have to say is, yeah, okay, well, that the Cairns police, I know that supposedly the Cairns police are stretched, and I know they send a lot of training recruits up here. I've heard there's not many police, but you see many police on the road, and you see many police like in the shopping centre and security when they're hassling some Indigenous guy that's, like I see in the shopping centre a bit or was a bit, and his relatives are in the shops and they're telling him to move on when the relatives in the shop look, things don't balance out in life really where they should. um yeah, all I can say in my situation, I had no police help. I even when I went to the police and told them things because finally I'd had enough. Um, when I went to first protect myself, there was no protection for me, no duty of care. I mean, Shelley and Greg Giles, they were there just to say, look, are you involved in selling drugs? This is when I gave them my phone. I said, no. I just want you to keep the mental health, that psychotic girl away from me. And I said, look, she's running a business over there, and the officer said to the mental health lady, did you know that? And she said, well, I know that she was private renting over there. And actually, the next time that I saw Greg Giles and Shelley, I was at the housing department and there was a book launch on, something about a brown dog, something about depression. And she had the audacity to invite me to a barbecue. Why would I go to a barbecue of a person? Because this is what I haven't told you as well. I nearly was shipped off to mental health myself. Okay, I did uni, I did teaching. I wasn't suitable to whole class teaching, but I did about at uni, so I'm degreed. And, I had other colleagues and friends on the outside, not many because I became more isolated because of these incidences and, living in housing. Anyway, on one occasion, and actually this is where it went like clockwork. On the Thursday, the detective rings me. On the Friday, I went to report um, what's happened to me, and the police turned me away. And on the Saturday, this is why it's good to keep names and make sure you get names of people that contact you. Like when they contact you on contactless numbers, you should ask for their name and write it down because otherwise you can't track things and they can deny things. But anyway, so like clockwork, Thursday detective rings me, tells me more to this fiasco. Friday, the Cairns police turned me away. And there's one prominent guy from out the back turned me away. He's a real asshole. Anyway, I can say that because, as a result of him turning me away, on the Saturday morning I wake up to my car being smashed and it was raining and I had to drive my son to his apprenticeship, and there was glass all over the seat, although being safety glass from the window, and we took our shower curtain to stop the rain. Anyway, it was just a dreadful scene, and I was in tears, of course, because who can afford at any time, even full-time working people, to fix their car? Anyway, yes, sorry, I'm going a lot off track, but when I moved to this new residence, which was the best friend, although they had, fights, I know, and how they retaliate is this was one of the things. So I'm sure they've been charged for this before. They used to chuck bottles and bricks through car windows, even of each other. Anyway, so this is basically how they broke my windows. That I'd find rocks in my car from where they'd chucked or bricks. Anyway, so in the other premises that happened to me again, I've called on because I felt like the new premises I was living in, instead of a small block of eight, I was living on a block of, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 units, all people like some vulnerable people, but a lot of them coming out of jail and, paranoid schizophrenic. So it was far worse. Plus, the girl's best friend was living right next door to me. Incidentally, my unit number was 13. Anyway, I know it is only a number, but within the first week they'd done my car again. And so I've called this Shelley and Greg over, and bang, bang, bang on the door, and they're trying to make out that I was selling drugs. And this Shelley goes, "Oh, we're going to have to up your medication." Now, I wasn't on any medication, although I'd had a fall and I had a bad hit. So anyway, and I know she meant psychotropic, those sort of drugs, but although I was vulnerable, I wasn't, deemed as having a mental illness as such like that. So anyway, I've gone to across the road to where my car was parked. Imagine that you live in a place, yes, I had a car, but you can't even park the car. And this was a new car because my first car, they also did the brakes and nearly killed me. And that's another story involving government officials at a petrol station because I went right through gas, uh, the the crate where the gas was. My car just rolled. Anyway, so I got away with that one. I got away with not killing anyone because I remember there was a young boy in the petrol station, and I just thought, oh, like I'm going to blow up the whole petrol station. But anyway, these people just did so much damage, and they don't care. It's just a game to them. And anyway, so when my other car was smashed in the new premises within a week of me living there, and remember there was a guy keeping watch the night my car was smashed. I saw him. Um, and of course, they can do that because her best friend was living next door. So, they're not going to report guy on the roof because they obviously provided the guy on the roof. Um, so it was very unsafe for me and my son to be there, really. Uh, I'd gone to my car after Shelley and Greg, and that, urged their way into my house after I had asked them to help me, admittedly. But anyway, I've gone to my car and I had trouble with this car. I remember sitting across the road at this neighbour's place and my car's not starting. I get a phone call and it's Shelley and she said, "What is your real name? Um, what is your real date of birth?" And I'd given them all my details. I'd given them all the right details. And she was making out. Finally, I said to her, "I'm not one of your patients." She said, you lied about your name and you lied about your date of birth because you are not on our records. And I said, "Shelley, I'm not on your records because I've never been a mental health patient. I asked you for help." Anyway, it's going to make me really upset, but the day before, um, I had been in a supermarket and I saw this lady called Anne who was like head of disability services in the area. I knew her from uni and I knew her from my work in hospitality. And she was quite, a good acquaintance that I'd bump into. And she did say to me, "Yeah, how's it going?" And I said, "I've just had my car smashed again." So I saw her incidentally in the Coles where I bought a lotto, next to where I bought a lotto ticket and lost it, which is what started me on this YouTube anyway. Anyway, so uh, the day the day that Shelley and Greg had come over, I'd also seen this Anne lady in the supermarket, and she told me where she was working, so I knew she was like head of disability services in Cairns. And oh, I meant to stop this, but I could just go on with this because there's so much really bad stuff happening, and within departments and the hush hushing things. Anyway, and the problem probably is because mental health's so big in this area, and also they always tell you that it doesn't happen to anyone else. Why does it happen to you? And I've met people that similar things have happened to, by the way. So I know that there's a lot of lies involved. Anyway, within these government departments. Anyway, so I'm in my car. My car's not starting, and Shelley's saying, basically, you're lying about your name and your date of birth. And, the day before she's saying about upping my medication and I wasn't on any. But of course I was like this, probably worse, snotty nosed. And, because I was really fearing for my life, because I was attacked by someone under the Mental Health Act who can't get charged, whose foster father's in the police of the town that I live in. So, and actually, that's why I blame the police for part of this problem. So, they should investigate and put people, in the right places, not people that attacked are the people causing the trouble. Anyway, all right, so I'm in my car. The car don't start. Shelley's saying, what's your name and what's your date of birth? And, it's a far cry from me and, having my degrees and wanting wanting to have a good life. I can't even start my car. I'm being told by this mental health prissy nurse who really doesn't appear to give a shit about anybody except herself that I am lying about my name and my date of birth. Of course, I know my name and my date of birth. And then she's telling me if I don't go up to see her, she's going to have me forcibly removed, like basically put into the mental health ward. Oh, I lost it there. My car wouldn't start. I walked up to the ex boyfriend's place. I rang Anne, the head of disability services lady. She said, Kathy, have you got any illness? She said, go straight away to a doctor. Get yourself cleared. Because apparently, you have to at least have one doctor saying that you're okay. And, one doctor can say not. But, something like that. She said, get yourself cleared. That led me on a journey whereby I went to the doctor. The doctor wrote a thing to say that like I was fine, to cover me in case they wanted to take me away. I was delegated to, I could choose some, bulk build psychologist. I went to this psychologist. It was another lady that I got to uni with. She explained to me that the people involved in doing what they were doing to me were very bad people, and not even to look at them sideways. Yet I was living next door to one of them. So the situation just got worse, really. It lasted about 3 years, and I moved about 3 times, and finally, really, my son saved me because he said, Mum, you're moving into a better place, which, yeah, pretty much was a good move. And it still affects me. And then my then my son um, ended up having a big accident at the hands of his boss, and he's moved he's moved on. He's now doing social work, and I'm sure as a result of what had gone on with us. And in the year that we'd moved into this new place, I had bought. This is after my son had had an accident. So in between my mum being ill and my son having the accident, I bought a lotto ticket and lost it, which is a lotto ticket that I'm fighting for. I'm going to end here anyway. I know this is live and I'm probably can be incriminated in some way by things that I'm saying, but I had to let it out. It's the first time I've had internet at home for years. And the reason I've got it is basically because I want to document my journey to prove the lotto. But so much shit happening, and it's still there's so much shit I've been told. Oh, actually, that's what I wanted to say. When I rang the police line today, and you can only hold on if you don't have the internet, which I said I only just got later today. Um, she's telling me, well, you didn't have something stolen. I said, yes, I did. She said, but it was too far ago. And really, the girl that had the item stolen should be ringing. Now, she's just a young girl, a young nurse that's just moved here. And most people, when they have a bike stolen in this area too, I suppose they're used to it. They just let it go. But we've had other things, like we've had people threaten us, like with really bad language, and with sexual connotations. And when there's a lot of females living in a space and there's children involved, you have to stick by each other. Anyway, oh, there are some men in the block too, but there seems to be you know people come and go out of unit blocks, and there's quite a few females at the moment. Anyway, so when I told the girl, look, I've just witnessed, someone taking your bike, it's over there, and then she realised that there was some shoes. She'd actually run over the guy's shoes. So we've got Cinderella's shoes, and that I caught him and said, look, I've taken a photo, and he's jumped the fence. I did ring the police. I didn't think the girl would, but the police link lady didn't want to talk to me. In fact, she was very off putting, and she kept wanting just to hang up. And she said she had the other girl had to make the complaint, so I just walked the phone to the other girl's place and knocked on a door, which I normally wouldn't do. But I just thought, look, we've got to let this stuff um, stop it. Like I because I lived in housing and I know how housing works, and that was another thing that I didn't go into, which so much shit happened within housing because. And anyway, I'll stick to one thing. Okay, so I've walked the phone to the girl, and even the officer was saying, "Well, why did you leave the garage open? I live in a gated block. I've only just moved." Anyway, I sit in the background. Look, I'm just going to report that lady because she's not even taking the details down. And later she'd heard that, so later she changed and she said, "Oh, I because first of all she wanted me to tell the girl what I witnessed, and the guy that I'd witnessed, and in fact that's hearsay, so the girl can't really ring up the police and say my neighbour saw this person. But I realise now that this comes later. Anyway, this is getting a bit much, but basically the police link lady said don't confront people. Yes, crime's going to get worse now because of the coronavirus. And she said, really, I don't even know if the police will come. But I said, well, we have his fingerprints on the bike, and he's stolen a few before, apparently. And he's also come and cased the joint, and he lives over the fence. So, we have a right to feel safe in our own homes, really. I then rang, housing department, and I knew the guy that I spoke to. And I said, you better document this call because like we referred it to the police, and you have to try and they've got to send notes to the people that live in their blocks because it's not just a right, it's a privilege to live in housing. Not everyone gets to have it. I'm just going to have a drink. The last thing I want to tell you is I had a very dear friend at uni when I was doing teaching, and his partner works at the women's shelter. So when I had a lot of trouble going on, I went to the women's shelter. But when I went to the shelter, it's not safe in there because the people that had been attacking me went there as well. And but I knew this lady because she was the wife of my friend from uni, who incidentally had suicided as a result of the stress of teaching. But anyway, she was writing me letters of support because I was trying to get to the private rental market because I just had to get away from housing. And I went in one day and she said to me, because now I realise that there is the Department of Housing and Communities, and there's the Homelessness Hub, and there's a women's shelter, and there's all these different groups, but they're actually all little satellites of one big government department. And when I'd been going into housing and saying all this is happening to me, please, you have to remove me because I'm not safe, and I had all these doctors' letters, and of course the police knew who the people were, and they just so downplay it because they say it only happens to you, but it must happen to heaps of people because I've met some, like I said. Um, One day I'd gone into the women's shelter, and my friend, who was the wife of the guy I went to uni with, she said to me, Kathy, I can't help you anymore. She said the housing department have rang me and said I can't write you letters of support. She said I don't know if, I feel like I'm giving to her. She said I don't know if they've got it in for you or for me, but we have to leave it at that. They're probably looking to move you, but for about 3 years I had a hell of a time. And then I'd moved into this other premises, and my son had an accident. I bought a lotto ticket. Mum was sick. My mum then passed. Look, everyone's got a story, but my story is that, you know, the police in this town, there might be some good ones, but the ones that I've been involved with, it I have no respect for them. Although, yes, if I'm in real trouble, I will call them, but I, I, I have less than respect for the police I had to deal with in the past because they actually caused me nearly to have a nervous breakdown. Same as the mental health liaison team, they're just in it for themselves. I can't see that they're just some pillars that look good when they go to functions and in the guise of helping people, but I really don't think they help, especially having a nurse saying to you, you're lying about your name and your birthday and trying to, put you into a mental ward. Anyway, that's my story. I'll leave it for now. I've been talking for 51 minutes, 50 odd seconds. Thank you.